Okay, boys and girls, we made it. The first episode of the Halo TV show is out. After years of waiting, canceled projects, and seemingly being in development hell, we actually have a live-action Halo TV series starring the Master Chief, John Halo himself. Now granted, only the first episode of the show is out right now, so it's hard to judge. But I know people are asking, is it any good? Is getting Paramount Plus worth it for the show? Will forcing my significant other to cosplay as Cortana in the bedroom eventually lead to turmoil in our relationship? Let's go ahead and take a look and see if we can't find some answers. Now, before getting into the nitpicking, I feel like I have to address the Halo community, because as a group, I know we can get our feelings hurt pretty easily, and we are very protective over our favorite game franchise. If you don't believe me, try leaving a negative opinion on the Halo subreddit. They will white knight for the multi-million-dollar game company until they die, but despite my criticisms of the games, I'm a diehard Halo fan. Now, like I said last week, I too am a big Halo nerd, and I want to see the franchise do well. But when you see a fucking 2001 Chevy Tahoe in the background of a shot in the show that takes place on a different planet 550 goddamn years after the car's manufacturing date, it just makes no sense, man. But getting down to the show itself, is the first episode actually any good? Well, the best way I can describe the show so far is it just kind of feels weird overall. The episode itself was fine, there were some decent action set pieces, and the CGI was serviceable. I mean, I wouldn't expect Dune levels of CGI in a television show, but thank God it doesn't look like a CW superhero show, because man, those are rough.
Motherfucker, you are hard to look at.
Now, they are still setting up the story, so I will hold my judgments on where the story goes until after we've seen every episode, so there's no real point to speculate and get butthurt on theories about what might actually happen. Now, this right here won't necessarily count as a spoiler if you've heard anything about the show online, but Master Chief does take his helmet off and shows his face. And as a lifetime fan of the series, I didn't want to see this. I don't know anyone who wanted to see this. Guess you can use the argument that it's okay if it's in service to the story, but just unmasking one of the most iconic faceless heroes in the entirety of pop culture in the first episode of the show just doesn't really sit right with me. Look at the Mandalorian. They didn't take his helmet off until the very last episode of the first season, and it was only off for a total of maybe a minute, and at that point in time, he was pretty much a brand new character to the Star Wars franchise. It wasn't like he'd been around faceless for 20 years already. Now, I know it's a little too early to judge, but I get a strong sense that they will go the Book of Boba Fett route and just have him without his helmet for like half the show, basically whenever he's not in action, and that like genuinely scares me. I guess if they had waited to show his face and had built it up more, probably could have had a larger impact on the story with a little bit of anticipation, compared to just blowing their load right in the first episode with Chief going, oh hey look, I'm not just a killing machine, I'm a human who gets his period and has emotions just like you. I think because the show isn't canon does help alleviate some of those woes about the show. If it turns out that the first season is over and the story was shitty and they bastardize every one of the characters, at least the fans can look back and say, well, at least it wasn't really part of the main universe. Now, I am glad they took this approach because it seems like they did the bare minimum SparkNotes level research into the games before making the show. Like, I get not wanting to adapt the games directly, but like, have you ever seen those interviews with people who make superhero movies and they're always talking about the comics they read, whether it's the directors, writers, or actors? They read the source material even if they aren't adapting it directly to screen, and hell, some of the best superhero movies made aren't even direct adaptations. But at least the people making this stuff is doing their research. One of the strangest things I noticed about this show was that there was this group of rebels that were using what looked to be AK-47s and other modern-day weapons in a show set in 2552. This would be equivalent to the fighters right now in Ukraine using 16th century wheel-lock pistols for defense. It makes absolutely no fucking sense. This is also the point where that 2001 Chevy Tahoe is in the background. Again, 500-year-old technology on a different planet is stupid as hell. I read an article that stated that one of the showrunners had said that every prop is put there for a reason, and that this wasn't some Game of Thrones Starbucks cup scenario. In the same article, the executive producer, Kiki Wolfkill, said that they assumed that the show would be analyzed frame by frame, which makes it even more mind-boggling that there was a shot of a Spartan killing an elite with a plasma pistol, but they forgot to paint it and didn't even bother to fix it in post-production either. Before sitting down and watching the first episode, my first major hesitation was that they weren't going to have Steve Downes reprise his role in voicing the Master Chief. It is still baffling to me because his voice is so iconic to the character of Chief, and hearing someone else's feels kinda like blasphemy. I mean, I get it now, because they wanted to show his face, and that would have been really hard to do if they had a different actor's face and tried to edit in his voice. Now, I am still disappointed they went this route, but I mean, it's whatever. But overall, the action was decent, CGI wasn't the worst, so I'm sure if nothing else, it will be at least somewhat entertaining throughout parts of the rest of the season. It's still weird some of the choices they made going into the show, like not referring to the source material, but I mean, like, that is their choice. But what do you guys think? Have you seen the show yet? Do you think I'm overthinking things, or do I need to take a forever nap? Feel free to let me know, or bully me down there in the comments. Feel free to like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you enjoy the style of weekly content. That's it for me this week. I'm out.